Welcome back to the Old Bald Guy's Shop. I got my friend Jim here with me today, and he has a project. We're going to make a marbles game. This is the game. He's done up a template so that we have something to work with, and I have made a little hexagon that we're going to build a bigger frame around so there'll be no edge grain showing. We've got some planing to do, some cutting to do, and then we'll start gluing that up. So we've glued this, clamped it, did a rough sanding, and I've gone over every seam with a pencil, and now we're going to sand it again until all of those pencil marks are gone, and that'll show us where the high spots are that we have to take down. So last night, Jim and I took a bunch of scraps. This happens to be some epay and some other stuff that we had. And we glued them up into what really amounts to a cutting board. But we're going to use this to make a jig. I need to make a jig to cut slots into the game board so that we can inlay pieces of various colors of wood, thin strips, 1/4-inch strips by 3/4. That'll be the marble tracks in the game. So we have a variety of different woods. We have some purple heart, some paddock, some walnut, even some leopard wood. And now we're going to cut off pieces of this big cutting board that we're going to use to make the jig that we can use to router to cut those slots. So those spacers will get knocked out after we've established all the rest of the positioning here. Now we could put a block right here that this would set up against. That might work. Yes, there's a whole much more work to do.
You weren't kidding. The jig is definitely the trickiest part of this whole thing.
Yeah. Take these clamps off. There's no way to avoid that. We'll drill these holes.
I see. Okay. I was wondering how we were gonna do that.
Yeah.
Everything all clamped up.
Now we can take these blocks out.
Both sides.
Yep. Before they get glued in. So we have made ourselves a jig out of what looked like a cutting board, but wasn't. And that will allow us to cut all the pieces the rows of marbles here, here, and here. And we'll just advance that around the board and cut each row, all 3 rows separately as we go around, using a router with a bearing bit. So the bearing will be running against our jig, and it'll be cutting a 1/4 inch deep. I've set the stop on here so that when I plunge that in, it's going to cut a 1/4 inch deep into the wood. So we're doing a little final fitting here of some inlay pieces. Sand them on the sanding board until they are a snug fit.
Ken, what kind of wood are we using here today?
This is Paddock. P-A-D-U-K. I'm going to bevel this edge just a little bit so that it doesn't catch as it goes in on the downward side. Okay, that snaps in.
Ken, I see that's a very interesting hammer or mallet you have there. What is that?
That's my old rawhide mallet. That's a 50-year-old rawhide mallet. Been around a long time. Works good, lasts a long time. So the rest of these we had to round over using the oscillating belt sander, but these last cuts are just a 30-degree angle, and so we can just snip those off, cut them to the proper length with a table saw, do the final fit, and we're good to go. Fits.
Ken, what was that adage you were telling me about?
Huh?
What was that adage that you were telling me about that your high school shop teacher taught you about glue?
Oh, it's not about quantity, it's about coverage. So we have cut and custom fit all of these different colored pieces for the last part of this. Now we're just going to glue them all in. All done with that. So we're making a template to cut the holes for the marbles to sit in on this marble game. So I've kind of worked out what the distance is between these, so I'm using a caliper. I've already scribed a center line with a scribing knife, working my way along the center line to mark out the points where we're going to make the marble holes. This plywood template is going to get holes in it that are 5/8 in diameter that will fit the collet, or the router bushing. It will fit the router bushing that we'll use to position it. This is the same size and shape as our finished piece over here. We've got filler drying right now, and then we still have to cut 4 holes in each of these little circles for those. Haven't worked that out yet, but we will. Now that we have our template complete, I'm going to show you what we did. So this template will allow us to cut each hole for the marbles in the game board. We used the same jig that we used to cut the slots for our hardwood inlays in the game board. And we set that jig on this piece and we marked around each section all the way around so that we had a starting mark on here so that we knew where to cut these holes. I marked a center line, then used a divider to lay out where each marble hole went. Then we cut those holes with a 12 millimeter Forstner bit. I used a 12 millimeter instead of a 5/8 because this bushing is a 5/8. This is a guide bushing for the router. And 12 millimeters is just about 3/1000ths bigger than a 5/8, so that this doesn't stick in the holes. They go in smoothly. So that's just a little trick. This guide bushing then gets installed in this adapter for the router. And then this adapter gets installed in the base of the plunge router. And I'm using a 1/2" round cove bit, and then we just plunge into each of these holes with the router, and it cuts those round holes into the marble base. We took a piece of scrap, cut some test holes, decided that this was the depth we wanted, set the router to that depth, and just plunge cut each hole for the marbles in the game board. Well, this is the moment of truth to find out whether or not we did this right or we totally messed up. There it is. It looks like the holes are where they're supposed to be. How did that happen? Okay, we are done with this project. Jim's marble game is finished. We have 6 different colors of wood in the home and start, and bloodwood on the outside track. It's lacquered. It's ready to go home. And we'll have marble games at Jim's house this Christmas. See you next time in the old bald guy's shop.